If you've ever listened to my radio show, and of course you have, you know I like to keep a lot of files on hand. You know, my little tab on the left-wing agenda. Now, tonight we're starting a new segment on the show. It's called the Wilkow Files. And today I want to focus on one of the biggest examples of government failure in the marketplace. The government's $50 billion stake in General Motors, which sure doesn't look like it's going to end well for the taxpayers. Now, big surprise. The Treasury is fighting GM over the company's proposed plan to buy out the government's 27% stake. Here's the problem. If the government were to actually sell out, the taxpayers would take a massive loss of $15 billion. For the government just to break even, the GM stock needs to get to $53 a share. It's somewhere around $24 a share right now, so they're almost halfway there. I wouldn't recommend holding your breath, as you would guess the government doesn't want to take this loss and look really bad on Obama's bailout. On the other side of the coin, GM bigwigs are sick of the, quote, government motors stigma, the executive pay restrictions, and the government limiting the use of their corporate jet. Well, that's what happens when government is your biggest shareholder. They get to tell you what to do. Now you have GM opening new dealerships in India. And I'm sure when the GM guys went over there, they flew coach. I thought, and I could be naive, they were supposed to be creating jobs here at home. Isn't that why we bailed them out in the first place? I guess the whole bin Laden is dead, GM is alive, and India's opening new car dealerships doesn't make a good campaign slogan. It also doesn't jive with the whole insourcer-in-chief's talking points. Joining me to talk about the government's General Motors mess is my friend, Dr. John Parnell. He is the Belk Chair of Management at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke. And hold on, before I got to get my file here. This is not actually a prop or anything. I actually do have these files, and these are actually real articles here that I've been compiling since the beginning of the GM bailout. Now, one of the things that's amazing is they keep telling us this company's alive, it's thriving, it's doing well, GM's #1 again. Yet, and I have the article right here from Investors Business Daily, headline, GM ramps up risky subprime auto loans to drive sales. If this company is doing so well, why does it have to use a subprime loan scheme to sell cars?
Andrew, it's not really doing that well, and that's the issue. A lot of this is just propaganda. It's just putting a good face on what was a bad deal. We've really already lost those billions. It really doesn't matter when we sell. We've already lost the billions. Subprime, that's just part of the problem that got us, or part of the issue that got us in the problem we're at right now. Got it in mortgage. We see it with GM involved in it now. And the company is just not performing well.
I know on your blog, battleforliberty.com, you and I talk all the time about government intervention in the marketplace. When you look at a free market, when you look at companies investing their own money to produce products and services that they reasonably believe people will want in the marketplace, they make a better product if they think that making a poor product will cause failure and a loss of capital. Not here at GM. They got the government.
Yeah, that's incentive, and that's really what capitalism and free markets are based on. If you don't have that incentive to do well, where you can profit from what you do well, and if you fail, frankly, you fail, you lose. If you don't have that, you've got the U.S. Post Office. You've got a situation where people just carry out the task. They don't really innovate, and that's what we see at GM right now. You see a Volt right now that's struggling. You see GM moving into other world markets, which is probably a good business move, but they're just struggling to build the kinds of cars that we want back here.
But it's not creating the jobs here. It's creating
not.
the jobs there.
Absolutely.
Why is it fair, or is it fair, for Ford Motor Company to pay a corporate tax for the subsidiaries of foreign brands produced here in the United States, BMW, Mercedes, Honda, Nissan, so forth, for them to pay into a federal government that then redistributes their company's profits into a market loser? Now, I understand that's very strong language. People feel very passionate about General Motors. Their families have had generations of workers there. I don't mean to hurt their feelings per se, but that's what competition is. What General Motors should have done is gone through lawful bankruptcy, come back with a better product. But they really can't, considering the government set limits on what they could pay the people who design the cars.
You're right, Andrew. And actually, I don't think it's strong language, because it is a market loser. I mean, market losers, we see them all the time. Businesses try to sell products. People don't buy what they sell. They move on to something else. Some finally go under. Eventually, GM will probably end up in bankruptcy again. And the question is really how long?
Well, maybe on the other side of this, I should sort of point out that if you work for GM, if you owned a GM dealership, if you were an investor, that GM sort of became the government's little experimentation. Dr. Stephen Chu, and I have the quote right here from another article, said the goal is to reduce costs so electric vehicles such as the Leaf can come down to about $10,000 in price, and there's a choice of EVs with a 100-mile range in the $23,000 price. Now, we know that was not, that's nowhere near the price of a Chevy Volt. But what happened was people like Stephen Chu and other environmentalists and Obama himself made this declaration that this is the technology of the future. Then they sought to use government to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. The problem was the company they experimented with didn't have the best vehicle.
Yeah, the market can take care of that because we do have an energy crisis here, and there are lots of alternatives from everything from coal and gas to solar to what have you. Just let the market take care of it. And I think an all-of-above approach where you just allow individuals to buy the products that suit their needs seems to make the most sense. Now, if you think about the Volt, sells for over about 40+ thousand. We've had recent reports that if you divide the cost, the R&D costs among the vehicles that have been sold, you're talking about $89,000 a car. That doesn't make a lot of sense, Andrew. I mean, if you think about that, and even if you fudge it a little bit and say, well, some of that might be allocated to future, long-term, you're still having something that's close to that. We're not even near break-even on that, and the government still gives you $7,500 to purchase a Volt. It's a vehicle that we don't want right now. It might be successful in the future. It might have some validity in the marketplace, but let the market decide. Let the GM go out, produce the cars it can produce on its own with its own funds at a price that we're willing to pay, and just let that take care of itself.